5, 4, 3, 2. Realtors, you're in the right spot.
We're going to do this together.
Welcome to the Leading Edge Podcast.
These mentors showed me a map of success.
This is the place for real estate pros like you to get better at running your business, balancing your life, and having happy clients.
Do you know how powerful you are?
And now your host, Eric Thompson.
Well, hey there, everyone. It's your good friend, Eric Thompson. This is the Leading Edge Podcast. It's episode number 75. This one is going to be very special because we have a very special guest joining us. And I'm just so happy. I'm so grateful that she is here. It is Jill Belconis. Say hello to everyone, Jill.
Hi, and Eric, thank you so much for inviting me on your podcast.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. So happy that you're here. As I mentioned, so grateful. Everyone should know that Jill is a coach, and she coaches and helps entrepreneurs, CEOs, business leaders. She is a total expert at that. And everyone should also know that Jill and I, we connected many years ago. I think it was about 10 years ago, Jill. We connected when you were in the real estate industry, specifically in the mortgage industry. You were leading a mortgage company. We reconnected here recently around coaching, and I'm so happy about that. But so Jill, we're going to focus on entrepreneurship, leadership, team building, those kinds of things. And everyone listening, whether you run just your own business, you run a small team, all these things will apply. So Jill, it's pretty interesting now. After lots of years being in the mortgage industry, you now work with people from all kinds of industries. A whole variety of things, not just real estate. So, could you tell us, what are the most common challenges that you see among these people that you're working with? What comes up seems to be pretty often to you.
Yeah, that's so interesting because after being 30 years in the mortgage business and being around, again, in the mortgage banking field, and then being around the real estate industry, and then jumping over and being a coach in these other industries, I realized everybody has the same issues and the same challenges. It really doesn't matter what the industry is. And I'd say it boils down to a couple. I mean, first of all, I think that most leaders have a tough time being focused on the most important priorities and get spread too thin and are chasing the next shiny object. And it's hard to get alignment throughout the company when that happens. And so I think that that's probably one of the biggest challenges I see, is that it's trying to take on too much instead of saying, okay, let's just focus on what's most important right now and get that done. And that, again, helps to get alignment through the company and also builds in accountability, which is really important. I think one other thing is, I think a lot of companies they say they have core values and to set behaviors. This is what how we want to act as a company. But I see a lot of issues in terms of actually living those core values. And so I would say that that's another challenge that I see. And culture right now is so incredibly important, especially coming out of COVID or whatever stage that we're in of it. The culture is super important, and really holding on and living those core values, I think, is extremely important.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I'm so fascinated by your answer, because what I'm thinking about, Jill, is that the kinds of people and the kinds of companies that these people lead. I mean, these are sizable organizations. And so in that first one, you're really talking about focus. You're talking about discipline. You're talking about alignment. You're talking about clarity. So what's going through my mind is, it's not just realtors, not just the individual realtor or the individual loan officer, mortgage originator that faces things like this. It's big time people, with C's in their title, CEO, CFO, that it's the same thing. They too chase the shiny object.
Absolutely. We all need that discipline, and it always starts at the top. I mean, if because you're sending the message, it cascades down from there. So it's so key to be focused starting at the top.
Do you think, I'm sitting here, Jill, thinking about why this might be, why this happens for this kind of person? Do you think, tell me if you agree with this, do you think it's because oftentimes the kind of person who's either attracted to the real estate business to be their own realtor, to be an entrepreneur, or the kind of person that would want to lead a company, they tend, like their minds are always racing to the next thing, and they tend to sometimes get bored and they look for the next new thing to work on. Do you think that's at the root of this problem sometimes, or maybe do you think it's other things, like as you think about why this may be happening for these?
No, I think you hit it, Eric. I think that's what it is. It's just as simple as, you know what, we started this and now this looks even more exciting. So let's run over there. And before you're finishing. And so really what it means is staying focused, and then making sure you surround yourself with people that are great executors, that they can help, because it's really, the entrepreneur is the visionary. But if you can get great people that can execute, and then you get the plan in place, let them go, empower them to execute on the plan.
Totally. So how do you help these people to get focused? Like, how do you, what are some things you work on with them to help them to just keep their eyes on the mission and not be chasing the shiny object? Like, are there things that come to mind that are helpful for these kind of people when you're coaching them?
Yeah, so I work with not only the CEO, but work with their leadership team. And it's exactly for that reason, because it can't be a one-man show or one-woman show. And it's really important to have the entire leadership team bought in, and that other people take ownership of when it comes to the plan. So again, you may have that CEO with a great vision and they're really excited about it, but then it's building out the plan and saying, okay, this part is going to be owned by this person, and this is what the finish line looks like. And I even break it down to, I love to use colors. And so I call green. Green is, you're going to get 100% there. You know, what does that look like? So before we even start, so everybody is clear when you cross the finish line, what does green look like? And then I ask them to envision, what does super green look like? Super green is, wow, we went above and beyond. Imagine if we could do that. What would 110% look like? And so everybody knows what it is to finish. And again, maybe that entrepreneur is not the one that's going to take it there, but surround other people that can help make that happen.
Yeah, so often that kind of personality, they're really not a finisher. They're starters. They're really good at starting, not oftentimes good at finishing. And so I think maybe a lesson for the individual realtor who's listening to this and maybe thinking, well, I don't have a bunch of people on my staff. What you do have are people all around you that are willing to help and who could help. People you could delegate to, contractors you could hire, projects you could farm out. Same thing, give them clarity around what done and what finished looks like, and focus on the things that help keep your business moving forward. So good, Jill. So good. I was thinking about when we were preparing for this podcast, that there's that expression, it's hard to see the forest through the trees. And I know I've been there a lot in my own businesses that I've run, where you're so in deep, you're just in the deep, dark, thick forest, trying to get things done, trying to muddle your way through, and you're not seeing the bigger picture. You're not seeing the forest, so to speak. So from your perspective, being a coach of these kind of people, what is it that they're not seeing and we're not seeing as entrepreneurs, as business leaders?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest blind spots is probably when it comes to some of the key people on the team. Mm-hmm. And they may be some people that have been there since day one, but the company has has outgrown that person and they're not in the right seat anymore. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the author Marshall Goldsmith, who wrote a book, and that title is "What Got You Here Won't Get You There." And I think it's just that the title of the book says it all. And if you really want to move the company forward, is this person in that seat going to help you move it forward? And maybe it's time to look and say, you need to move them into another seat, or maybe they don't have a seat on your bus anymore, unfortunately. And those are probably the toughest, but those are, you cannot grow the company and move forward unless you have the right people doing in the right seats, doing the right things.
Oh my gosh, Jill, I could not agree more. And then as soon as you started giving that answer, what popped to mind were certain people that I've kept on the bus for too long in my life and in my career. And then I started thinking about how the companies I've led just totally propelled forward, totally jumped to a new level when we either got them into the right seat, or when they weren't on the bus anymore. I could not agree more. And from my perspective, those are hard to see, and you don't want to see it because it's super uncomfortable. Like it's not fun at all to consider making a change there, and because those are hard, uncomfortable, challenging, sometimes scary conversations. But boy, you got to do it, right? Like you got to do it if you want to move your company forward.
Yeah, Eric, we've all been there. I mean, any leader probably says, "Oh gosh." I look in the mirror and you see yourself and and you can think of people, and it's so hard. I mean, you have emotional attachment. They're usually great people. It's not that it's a bad person. It's just they're not, they don't have the capacity to do that job that's needed. And actually, Jim Collins came out with a book, his new book that came out, I don't know if it was about 6 months ago or within this past year, Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0. And in chapter 2, it's all about people. And there's 2 pages, and I've actually printed that off, and I've shared that with all of my, all the clients that I have. And it specifically talks about this. And it's 7 questions to answer when you look and you say, should I keep trying to develop that person? Or is it time to replace that person and move them again into another seat or off the bus? And going through those 7 questions, and I've stepped through this with so many clients when they've been in that stuck position, at the end, they go, "I've got my answer." I'm telling you, it's really powerful. And, but again, it's not easy. And you want to do it with grace and compassion and do it in the right way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me ask you this, Jill. So you're working with the leaders, the founder, the CEO. Do you ever find yourself coaching that person to fire themselves from a particular job? Because I think what happens a lot is that those kind of people, they take on many roles, they wear lots of hats. Sometimes they like to stick their nose into all the places, they want to have control in every aspect of the business. And my perspective is oftentimes they're not the right one to be doing that particular part of their job. They're much better served, and the company's better served doing another job or really focusing on certain areas. Like, are you ever coaching these people that you coach to fire themselves from a particular job that they're doing?
I don't know that it's fired themselves, but it's questioning whether they're in the right role. And I get them to try to define, first of all, what it is they love to do. And what it is they're best at, because they can't do everything. The company is never going to scale. The company is never going to grow if they have their hands in everything. And taking a look and saying, I just had this conversation with a client yesterday, a CEO of a company, and said, what are the jobs that others could probably do equally as well as you, or potentially even better? And it was a woman, and she actually started listing them off. And I said, are those things that you love to do? And she said, no. And I said, so tell me what you love to do. And what are things that nobody probably could do as well as you, and that are just where you thrive and where it is such a huge, gives the company a huge competitive edge. And I mean, it was like this huge aha. So, I'm not telling anybody to fire themselves, but I'm helping to coach them to see kind of, again, see the through the trees and get to that point of saying, you know what, where are they going to be happiest, and where is it going to benefit the business the most?
Right. So much about awareness. It sounds like you really help that leader to become aware what they're good at, what they're not, what the other people on the team are good at, what that leader loves to do naturally, what would be best for the company, all those things. You, Jill, a minute ago, you mentioned the word scale. I know that's something you really focus on in your business. I know that's one of your passions, is to help companies, help people scale. So I was hoping you could talk more about that, and maybe even starting with what do you mean by that? Like, what is, I think scaling is a term that gets thrown around a lot. So like, what do you mean by scale, and how do you help people scale?
Yeah. So first of all, I say when people hire me and they say, we want to get a strategic plan, and we want to have a plan to know where we're going in 3 to 5 years. And I say, well, I start asking them about their people and their team and the leadership. And because you can't grow the company, you can't scale the company without having the leaders and growing and scaling the leadership team first. And so to me, that is really, really crucial. And it's crucial that comes first. And so that's it. It goes hand in hand with the business growing. And growing is everything from expanding, but having it in a way, like we were just talking, that the CEO is feeling that freedom. I mean, that they are not, the business isn't controlling them, but they're controlling the business. I mean, if you're working harder and every time you get, new sales or new clients, you're dreading it and the company's dreading it because actually the revenue isn't equating, equating to profitability, that's not scaling. That's not fun. Yeah, you might be growing revenue, you might be adding and throwing people at the problem, but that is not what I call successfully scaling. And it's getting to the point of, one of the things that I have every client do is I put them through this exercise called the painted picture. And it's very cool. It comes from, I'll give credit to Cameron Harold, has a book called Vivid Vision. And I have them read that chapter, and I have them put together this vision, which is really important. And I've had CEOs and founders get emotional when they're sharing it, because I say, don't worry about how you're going to get there. We're going to build that plan, but I need you to paint that picture. I need you to put it down. And I give them a whole bunch of prompts and whatever. And, suddenly you kind of see this whole picture as it develops. And so, scaling the business is getting to that point, getting to that painted picture.
Totally. And it applies to companies and businesses of all size. So
absolutely.
An individual realtor, an individual loan officer, they too can have their own vivid vision. I love that. I love the idea of a vivid vision. It gives your brain direction. It tells you what success looks like. It's like, all right, guys, this is where we're going. And that is super helpful for everyone, including ourselves, to have that clarity. So one of your other passions, Jill, is team building, and you've talked a lot about it already. Getting the right people on the bus in the right seats. Tell us about some of the keys to building a really effective team. Like, what does it take to have a great team? Because we can't do it ourselves as much as we may like to want to do it ourselves. What does it take to have a great team?
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of Patrick Lencioni. And he's an author, and he actually about a year ago started a program called Kappa Pro, which for coaches and consultants like me. So I'm actually affiliated with that. So I've got access to all of his organizational health tools. He's probably the guru when it comes to organizational health and team health. And that's another thing that I start with is, as I said, in terms of growing the team, first of all, you need to have a healthy, cohesive team in place. And his probably most famous book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, that everything starts with trust. There has to be, absolutely strong, vulnerable, healthy trust amongst the team. And if you do have that, then you can have healthy conflict. And we talk about that. And I say how important it is to get to that where you're having healthy debate, because you don't want everybody to think alike, and you want people to feel safe to be able to discuss things. Artificial harmony is not a good thing. And I've walked into teams where people are afraid to speak up. They're thinking a lot of things. And then there's a lot of meetings after the meeting, and those don't do any good, right? So, but if you have that healthy conflict and people are able to share and discuss things, it just gets a lot of great discussion. And then you have commitment, and the team feels behind it, and everybody's together on it. And then you can hold each other accountable. Accountability is probably the biggest thing that I hear about when I say, what are the biggest, I ask going in, what are some of your biggest challenges? I always hear, we've got a problem with accountability. We're not great at holding each other accountable. So if you lead up to that and you have accountability, you're going to get the results that you want. And so all that's just super important.
Absolutely. So really starting with trust. And I couldn't agree more about Patrick Lencioni. Read everything he's ever written, videos of his. The guy's amazing, a genius. And one of my favorite quotes ever is from him. He says, "Conflict layered on trust is the pursuit of truth." I love that. So maybe we can finish with this, Jill. How do you build trust in a team? I mean, is this going to happen naturally, or are there specific things you can do to develop and enhance trust within a team?
Yeah. So, I take teams through a lot of exercises, but it starts with being vulnerable. It's not being afraid to ask for help. It's being a very active listener. Asking questions, being curious. It's how we behave during meetings. It's how we behave outside of the meetings. But we spend a lot of time on the trust part first. Got to
have that first.
Totally.
Okay, Jill, this is all amazing. Such good stuff. So good. If anyone wants to learn more from you, find out more about you and the kind of help that you offer, what should they do? What are some good places for them to go to find out more about you?
Absolutely. So I'm a Scaling Up certified coach. So I've got a website, JillBelconis.com, JillBelconis.com. You can also Anybody can feel free to email me at jill@jillbalconis.com, and I will be happy to respond if you have any questions or on anything that I shared today, or you've got a specific situation that I might be able to help with. I'm happy to answer any questions. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about all this. So love talking about it with you, Eric, and I love talking to any of your listeners.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So great to have you. And what I love about you, Jill, is you've done it. You did it yourself. You built and led an incredible company, very successful company. Now you're showing other people how to do it. Plus you have the tool set from Patrick Lencioni and other resources that you have. So you bring so much value. You're so helpful. I appreciate you so much as a leader in business. And it's been great to reconnect. And everyone, I appreciate so much. The fact that you are engaging with this podcast means the world to me. And Jill, you have an amazing day. Thank you again for being on.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And okay, everyone, thank you for engaging with this episode. It means the world to me. Can't wait to see you in the next one. Until then, enjoy life on the leading edge. Take care. Okay, Jill.